here. And today we're doing Wampum Belt teachings with Leroy Hill. He's the Cayuga Nation Bear Clan from Six Nations of the Grand River. He is a faith keeper and a sub-chief, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. He's been married for 34 years. He has 5 children, 11 grandchildren. He's a sanctioned speaker of the Great Law of Peace in Guyfio. He is a speaker of 3 Haudenosaunee languages and one of the Wampum record keepers for the Haudenosaunee. He's also helped to develop and remains an advisor for numerous language programs, as well as he's a cultural advisor for numerous departments and organizations at Six Nations and surrounding communities. Also, Leroy is a professor of Indigenous knowledge and has worked as a co-instructor of Indigenous studies at McMaster University. He's assisted with an Indigenous law course at the University of Windsor, as well as assisted with the People of the Longhouse course at Wilfrid Laurier University. He's currently working as a coordinator for the Haudenosaunee Resource Center in Six Nations. So I have no further ado. I'd like to hand it over to Jock.
Now I'm Courtney. Well, I'm going to say a few words in my language first, as our custom. We give thanks. It's been a little bit of a journey to get here for a few of us, but a good journey. So, Hohahes. Those que sentia the book up with Cayuga or the Nota, those que they strong, we got a jar, we want to once. The Collegina Hota, the Barrie the Gasmata song, we walk in Napoli on the book of Soma, Pagero, the Cayuga, Rotaway, the Barrie Moyana, the Oman is a latte, the Barrie Watted. That's what again, the Oman is a latte. Dicono parlano da fuori da strano da squadra nostra che ci non ora squadra che no squadra. That was a well understood language one time ago across the land, across the country really. That was Mohawk language. I'm Cayuga Nation, and I speak my Cayuga language as well. But I know some of my friends here travel. They're Mohawk learners. I don't know anybody learning language here. Good job. Keep it up. Try your best. And one thing, I'll give you a bit of advice. I'm a teacher. I'm also a student. I'll give you some advice that helped me is forget about time. If you can manage to forget about time and just find a pace that you can maintain, don't worry about time. Some say, I got to get this far in 30 days or this far in 60 or 90 days or maybe it's a year or 2. It seems like to me that's almost self-defeating for most, not everybody, mind you. Some will achieve that way, but for most, it's best is to find a pace you can maintain and keep working at it, and it'll happen. So that's my advice to you. I've learned that along the way. When I grew up, I had language all around me. My whole neighborhood around my family, everybody had 2 or 3 languages. So I grew up hearing my languages and somewhat understanding. I didn't have the best understanding. And I got inspired when I was a teenager to fix that. And so I consulted with the speakers of my family who were functional and they were very good speakers, and at least Cayuga and Onondaga language. And my grandmother lived next door to me. She could speak Mohawk as well. And I actually heard her, I think, speak all 5 languages. I did hear Tuscarora too in my time. There was a couple fluent Tuscarora speakers yet. So I never bothered with that language too much, but the other 5, even now, I'm around those five languages of the Haudenosaunee. So Mohawk language, Oneida language, Onondaga language, Cayuga language, and Seneca language. We still have fluent speakers that was their first language, so we're pretty lucky yet. And this is the last generation of that age group right now. But we've created a lot of programs, language programs, and we've had some measure of success developing learning tools, teaching. That's one of the things that I've done in my last 30 years or so, is to develop tools and I would say form relationships and organize people together who could make things happen with our languages, so that our languages and our teachings that are embedded in our languages continue. So we have a beautiful culture. Everything comes together. So I know there's various nations and you come from different areas and that, so I don't know exactly all of your stories, but I know my story well and our people's story, and that's what I'm here for today, to share a little bit. But I just thought I would share a little bit about my learning. But I started working probably when I was a teenager. I started working with elders, just making myself around them. So some of them were artisans, and some of them were really, really good storytellers of our culture and history. And I put myself around them, and next thing you know, I picked up artwork. So I survived off of artwork probably off and on about 15 years. Even right now, I can leave the world behind and survive from artwork. So I learned that from sitting with our elders and the Creator's help, and put some talent in his hands for art. So the art world connected me with culture. It connected me with the stories of our people, and I want to keep those things alive through my hands and work. So some of you can relate totally with it, and some of you maybe you need to get your hands into that a little bit and try. Eat whatever, whether it's sewing or beading or sketching or painting or sculpting, many things to recreate the stories of our. So what I'm here for today, this is one we're going to do just that, is to mark and remember, to mark important events and to remember what was said, what was done back then. So these are used, these records here are used to memorialize something. They're used to record important events and messages that are embedded in there. So we use these regularly. In my lifetime, we always use, especially these clusters. We call it the fire wedge stick. We always use a fire wampum. So we have a fire wampum that represents our spiritual beliefs, and the messages are embedded in there of good living and good teaching, and about living right, being good human beings. We also have another one, and that's for our leaders of the Initial. They use it, and that's to keep our council records. So that our council fires more similar to this. And there's a purple strand on there for the Tuscarora Nation come in later. So there's 5 nations, and that's this belt here. The older folks, they say, you start learning, and that's what this life is about for you. is to keep trying to learn and keep your minds open, because there's nobody who knows everything. So even the kids can teach us things sometimes, or the older folks. So that's what one of my first training from an elder was to never think you know everything, and then make your world a continuous learning journey. So I can remember around that time too, I was kind of struggling a little bit up here. Who am I? What am I here for? What am I supposed to be doing? I remember having those thoughts around that time. So it was the elders that I sat with kind of guided me through that. And they say, start learning. It's a good time to start. Never mind what you don't know. Most of our communities are struggling in many ways, but as far as identity issues, language and tradition and culture, we're lacking. And we're in a race with the clock in some communities. So that's what I learned from the elders was, don't worry about that, what you don't have, do something about it. So now is a good time to start. Try and work on it and find a way to fit that into our busy week, our busy schedule, you know. That was probably the biggest challenge. How do you fit learning and maintaining those things that make us who we are into your week? So it's still a weekly struggle for me. I get pulled in many directions. And I enjoy helping people, and I enjoy the work that I do. And I think that's key too. You've got to enjoy what you do. Find a way to enjoy it. Things will go a lot better. So, anyways, my learning came about from many sources. And one of my greatest teachers in my teenage years was my father's oldest sister. I think she could speak all the languages. And I used to go and see her just like, I want to check this. Is this how I say this? I want to say this. Just to talk to another elder. I would kind of talk to this elder and say, am I saying this right? Kind of like the test. Am I saying this right? Then go over to this elder and say it. And if I say something that I'm going to go and talk to this other elder, that's what I was doing. I was just kind of ping-ponging around with elders and working on improving my language. So I've done that for decades. Now and again, I still do that because I'm not as fluent in Mohawk, but I can handle it. I'm functional with Mohawk language. And the reason why, because there were still quite a few when I was learning. When I hit that button to start learning, it put me around people, and some people just like talking Mohawk to each other. So I had the experience of that. Thankful for that. Anyways, some of my best teachers were my female relatives, the older ladies, and aunts and so on. We had an older lady, she lived right across the road from me right now. And she used to get my wife to help with things. And now and again she'd say, I see you got a truck. See you got a truck there. You go, yeah, she knows I got a truck. She said, stop by. Come over there, next thing you know, I'm hauling stuff for her the rest of the day. But she was fluent in Mohawk, her and her daughter. I don't know why. She taught her daughter Mohawk and Cayuga language. And her son, he couldn't hardly understand nothing. And I think he was older. So they lived right next door to me in my childhood, but they lived across the road from when I built the house. So we always had a connection with her. She was a feisty older lady. She's one tough as nails, huh? Don't try to help me out until I asked for it. Like to walk in the snow or ice or something, she was tough. Hauling her things in there. We're kind of running out of those people cut from that cloth. Huh? I met a lot of them in my journey. So you have to stand up straight. Huh? That's everything. Stand up straight and walk straight. Sit straight. Little things like that. Now that's learning that I had that along the way of trying to get an understanding of these things. So around that time there, my uncle was a chief, of course, the late chief, Haudenosaunee. Haudenosaunee was a late Cayuga Nation Bear Clan. He was the chief of my nation and clan, my family. He held a title, which some of you may be familiar with, maybe you're not, Discahe. Discahe was a chief title passed down from ancient times when peace on earth came to Arkansas. The messenger designated that one of the titles that a leader will have, Discahe. Discahe was our leader who went 100 years ago. The government decided our system of landhunters and chiefs was no longer adequate to them. So they sought to overturn and to overthrow our governing system. Discahe was sanctioned by our government to let the world know we need help because we're under attack in our homeland. Somebody trying to phase out our chief and landhunters, which is our ancient system of doing things. So Discahe was our leader who went overseas, and he got support from many countries for our nationhood and our identity, and to continue on. Basically, we just want to continue on being who we are. So that's really all he was over there doing. Is we just want the right to decide for ourselves what's good for our people. That's all. That's the role of a grandmother and a chief, is to keep our people healthy around the fire. That's messages that these want. So we say the word we have for family, and that means those around the fire. So whatever way you relate, if you're around the fire, you're family. So it might even be a neighborhood kid, huh?
How do you spell family?
Yo biết một con đi sẽ again.
K-A-W-A.
I'll defer to Tim over here.
E-S-I-R-E.
Thank you.
Okay, spell it again.
A-A-W-A-E-S-I-R-A.
R-E.
R-E. R-E.
Gawajire. Gawajire. That's our word for that. And that's what that means. It means those around our fire. So if you think about that, it's not really a parent, and grandparent, and child, and all that. It's those of us around the fire.
Can you pronounce that again? Sorry.
Gawajire.
Gawajire.
Yeah, jire.
Jire. Gawajire.
Yeah, now,
Nice.
now the thing about Mohawk language, there's a dialect difference. Some would say it like that, and some would say it Ellen. Gawajile.
Gawajile.
Yeah,
Okay.
Gawajile.
Gawajile.
So I heard both of them dialects, so I use them both. That just solves the argument, right, Tim? Well, there's an argument sometimes between speakers and communities over what is that an R sound or an L? And then there's some that make that sound together. Gawajire, like an R and an L. See, that's our nature, huh? We don't want to argue about it. We just roll with it. Just roll with it. Huh? So anyways, my learning journey took me around men and women that had that knowledge from their childhood or from their experience, Like, so I was thankful that I had a chief in our family, and had kind of leaders. I kind of got looking into that. Like, we kind of had a history of leadership in our lineage, both sides of my family. So I thought, geez, I don't know nothing. I better get learning up here, That's what my mind was doing to me. So I'm like, I come from a line of these leaders, and I feel like I need to get educated about us. So I got that inspiration somewhere along that lines, and that's just what I done. Made sure I visited every elder that I could connect with, men and women, and that was my teachers. And it helped you along the way. They knew they could talk the language to me, and some of them were more comfortable teaching that way. So that kind of helped my journey along. So anyways, around not too long after that, my uncle says, you got a knack for language. He says, you should start coming when we meet. He says, we counsel once a month, the chiefs meet. He says, that's our traditional government. You should come, he says, because we just talk all the languages there. He says, it'll be fun. That's how he tricked me into going. This year is my 40th year sitting in council, and I've missed about 5 council meetings. That's it. Just so you know, it did catch my interest. And we're not as good with the language right now. Not always anyways. We've got some that are just learners. So when I was started going to council, that's all they did was speak the languages. And it was interesting because I never heard Seneca language a whole lot, nor did I hear, like even the Mohawk, the Eastern, like Hohahes Mohawk, a little different than Grand River. And I heard Grand River Mohawk mostly up to that point. So the Grand River style of Mohawk was just a little bit slower and a little different than Hohahes Mohawk. It's still like that to some degree. But anyways, it's caught my interest, and I started watching them, language difference, And I went to council to learn, and that's what I started doing, just go there and learn and sit there. And sometimes I couldn't sit there all day, but sometimes our councils, even now, I got a council tomorrow, sometimes our councils go till we have to watch, if there's still agenda items and the sun is setting, they have to close it off and set another date. Because the rule in our laws is not to council once the sun goes down. Because we might argue with them, or else if you're getting fatigued, you might get short temper, or you know what I mean, you won't give it its due, the issue. So that's stuff from our laws here. Anyways, I begin in council, I remember them saying, we gotta get our wampum belts back. I remember that conversation took place. And they had a team that was researching, where's our wampum records? What happened to them? They were taken at gunpoint, some of them, pointing the gun, Canadian government, pointing the gun at our wampum keepers and surrendering. We lost some of our records that way. We lost some also from these traders, collectors and whatnot. They embezzled them out of individuals. And this picture I have here, this was taken in 1871. And we had a lot of wampum records back then, from what I understand. And now and again, they would get those wampums out. And those are all elders with knowledge. Hohahes, what we call our chiefs. These chiefs from all the different nations, they would sit together and get these out. And one by one tell you this is what this means. And explain the message that's in these records from ancient times. People ask, how old are these things sometimes? Like, yeah, I've been asked that. And we really didn't keep much track of that, but I will give you this food for thought. We received a message of peace, like most other cultures in the world. So, if the messenger of peace came, and it's been kept track, we're following that calendar just right now, 2024 years ago, some say, the messenger of peace comes to earth. So I can't tell you, maybe that's how old is it, I don't know. Did the messenger of peace visit all the people at that same time or no? But the experts that studied us, anthropologists and whatnot, government agents, they say, oh, that's only a few hundred years old. That's what they like to say. But my feeling is this, if we were given a message of peace on earth, in some ways it intersects and connects to other cultures, how can you not say that's not a couple thousand years ago? It don't matter to me, and I make them mad because of that. I've sat at round tables debating these things as an expert. Of course, we don't really have experts on our side. I would probably get laughed at. But I sat there as somebody that has that knowledge of things from our culture. And all I know is this was well established before Europeans arrived here. That's what we do know. Many generations had established great peace on earth, on this island. So they can theorize all they want, and the theory changes every now and again. And some try to connect it with science, with the eclipse and things like that. I haven't never heard elders talk like that. So If you read or see anything like that, it's kind of just scientific experimentation and theory going on. So what we know is the message that is about being a good human being, and that's more important to us. That those values and teachings to guide us there as humans, that's more important than how old is this. These may be from the start of time, for all you know. We don't really know. It's the teachings in here. So, anyways, in council they were arguing that, well, not arguing, but they were fighting for our Wampum records, tracking them down, and they had assembled a team to do research. Some were professors and historians, and some were museum workers, and some were lawyers. Put a team together, and they made a report back from time to time, and they says we tracked down 11. I remember that. They tracked down 11, and I kind of think it's something in the picture here. Let me go back a little. Right here. These were the belts they were referencing. Says we found them. There's a little more than 11 in there. So I don't know if all of those came back to Grand River, but I remember them saying we've tracked down 11 of our Wampum records. You know where it is? And we're in the midst of convincing them to return stolen property. That's national property, tying into our messages. So that's a debate I heard, that's in the 1980s. So at the time there, my brain was going, I'm like, okay, what are these things? Because I never seen these things. So my brain was, as an artist, I'm coming up with images. What could these beaded belt things look like? No idea. I was denied that up to that point, really. We only had knowledge of what the elders and those older chiefs and grandmothers told. Now one of the chiefs started making replicas, so we would know. And I hit that just at the right time. I was just right at the right place at the right time, and that's what my mind was. I wanted to know about these things. There's messages recorded in these things, and message of joining unity. You're stronger united, and you unite for good cause. So good mind and peace, and charity, compassion. That's some of the messages in these things. So I don't know why they were taken from us. I suppose we'll probably never really understand, other than they thought it would weaken our cause, you know. I can't tell. But my grandfather was a city chief when these were taken. So the gun was pointed by government officials. He demanded the surrender of these. No longer the government system. When that happened, my grandfather was the city chief, and he said that he come in armed to back up the Indian agent. He come in and he read a declaration. You're no longer the government of your people. We're going to install an electric system. So they said this thing, we're no longer Haudenosaunee government. It was funny, but not really. Government continued to function to finish that. And that's the way we've had to operate up to now. Our government, Canada says we're a phantom, you know. Go through the border and come back with our documents and stuff. As a Haudenosaunee name, they say this is phantom. I say thank you. I'll see you next week. Just like they done with that, right? They said this declaration basically abolishing us from the face of the earth. They set it on the table. We'll come to that when the agenda gets free next Tuesday. That makes me feel good because we're still fighting that way, you know, in our government. I worked for our government for 40 years. This is my 40th year. Most of that without any kind of pay. It's because we believe in that. But they've been paying me lately for teaching. And I do a lot of research. I just recently completed reciting our great law of peace in Cayuga language, which has never been done. So I just completed that. It took me a few years to do that. It's never been done. So I got like 20 some hours, 22 or 23 hours. I switched it over to Cayuga language. We have it Mohawk and Onondaga so far. I work on a committee that interprets these things and puts our knowledge together in the different languages. So in that committee that all of our councils have sanctioned, there's about 6 of us that speak more, our language or more. So we're putting our language and our knowledge, men and women together to put that knowledge back together of these things. So we work all the time, and we meet every month. That's some of the work that I do my artwork, and that's stick drawings, like our ancient markings. What do they call those on the game? Hieroglyphs? Petroglyphs? Hieroglyphs, there you go. He's my legal advisor over here. I hope I don't get an invoice. No, I'm good. Now, you know, I've known him a long time, Tim, from Walked Up. Yeah. Now, we haven't seen one at least. That maybe it was on Yosalage, around there, about 20 years. But this community was in a real resurgence, I would say, language and traditions and everything. It was a great feeling to be there. I hope that it still exists. That's your community has grown, you know. That's what it seemed like happened a few years back, right? In the 80s and 90s, there was almost non-natives that was around. It says, you're having a renaissance. And I don't know if it was that or not. I was kind of up in the air about that term. Because me, I've always been, you know what I mean? I don't know if it's a renaissance. You know what I mean? But I think there was a resurgence in Indian country. And part of it, that's how you say Indian country. But across the land, our indigenous family regained some strength and got some energy to reconnect to those roots that have almost been pulled out of the ground. And I think this is a journey we're all in different stages of that. So, anyways, my learning started there, and they were using, when they have Chiefs Council, they were using this. First time I really seen and paid notice of that, they have this. And then I asked my uncle, what is that? Gajista in Cayuga. And it's similar how I use that word, right? Same root word. So this has got to do with the fire, around the fire, Gajista. And it would also say Gajista Gueniyo, means the principal fire, the most important fire. So that's some of the terms I learned about this. They call that. And we have spiritual fire, we have political fire. That's our fire that we gather around and gather our minds and our thoughts. So they use this, and the first thing they do is they give thanks, Mother Earth, give thanks for everybody being here, and we acknowledge some who maybe are sick and they can't come out much. We're thinking of them too when we give our expression of gratitude. Or if there's any family suffer loss, they acknowledge that. The speaker holds this wampum beads, and he gives thanks. And then he goes through Mother Earth and everything you can think of creation. All living things, the plants that grow, and the medicines and the berries. And when they got done, and it says, we're now going to uncover the ashes. That's the term of this. We're going to dust off the ashes and kindle a good fire. And that good smoke's going to rise, and it's going to connect the earth with the other world. That's the kind of wording I heard. My mind was blown away, because I never heard anything like that, really. And I was like, so the earth is connecting with the other world, and he is holding this like this. We're connecting earth world, and that's what really done to my mind was this connects with the Creator. So when you hold this here, we're connecting with the Creator. That's what I made of it, and we use it that way. If somebody has done wrong, or just want to give thanks, we hold this and pledge, and we give thanks. We pledge to do our best, and we'll try to do better tomorrow. So they say it's just like grabbing the Creator by the hand. That's how strong these are. That's the power that they have because the Creator sent them with that messenger of peace. That's where we got this from. So we use this even now. Tomorrow we use this again. One like this isn't it. I should have brought it for this long. Half of the length of this table, that's our fire come from the messenger of peace. So that's what I seen them do. And then when they got done giving the thanks, ceremonially uncovered the ashes and kindled a nice fire and good smoke rising. And it's connecting the earth with the sky world. And then there's a few words of encouragement for everybody. Our government is now in session. So they expect proper protocols, proper procedures, proper conduct, proper language. Even the ruling in here is there's to be no harsh speaking. You speak kind words and use that good mind and peace. So that's some of the messages embedded in this. Now you think about if we had this operating across the board, whether it be in your house, whether it be in your neighborhood, whether it be in your workplace, your school, your governing system, that's the law that's embedded in here, is to practice good humanity and be respectful of others' content. So it's all procedural. So this represents our nation sitting together, and that's why they're tied together at the top. We're in it together. That's what this is a constant reminder of. So they say that when the meeting is open, the good smoke going to rise. And it's up to the Onondaga Nation. They're our firekeepers. They're the ones responsible to do this. Offer the words to express our gratitude and set the tone. And then the wampum is set in display right in the center. There's a bench set there, and it's set on white like this. It sits there, so if you come in and you see that that's out, that means our government is in function. So you got to observe proper conduct. That's what it means. It works on the mind. That's what we actually call these. We say, God, you go rock, we go dip. Means it works on the mind. So there's a connection. The Creator gave us these wampum beads, and it's to connect our minds with His. And it's interesting. So in Moha, to say the mind, Oligora, the mind, Oligora. This, Oligota. See that? Oligora, the mind, Oligota. That's this. So even in the language, they connect. So this connects with our mind somehow. It works on our mind. And we even carry this. We're taught that way. We carry that. You might have it somewhere tied on their ankles or their wrist or something, or just carry it. So it's one of the things that I've been taught. You don't leave home without. So some of us carry a strand. Carry this all the time. And the reason we carry this, it keeps us in balance in our minds. So it's like a reminder, be good human beings, and also it's a protection of our minds. It keeps our minds clear. So that's carry this all the time. That's what our Creator put here for us. So in the language, we'll say, "Oyatano." Hard to interpret that, but it's like a guard, a guide and a guard. So when we have this shell and this wampum, Oyatano. That's what that means. It's our guard or guide. And another bowl. So I share that with you because these are practices right now of this wampum. This isn't, and these were on museum collection in the storage room. You know? I asked the guy who was running one of the top museums that had these things, why you got our stuff in there? Why? Because I'm trying to understand this. You know? He says, around the mid-1800s, Canada and the U.S., they strategized to eliminate your people. And they were working day and night, drawing up policies that you're going to follow. and that's gonna cause you to assimilate into what they want. So he says around that time there, somebody must have got a guilty conscience and said, let's hire these researchers and anthropologists and go out and get whatever they can get, so it'll be stored away and filed away, so if the grandchildren ever want to learn who they are, it'll be on file for them. This was from a U.S. government official running their collection, told me that. And it made sense, it kind of helped me back then, because I was struggling with, why is my records of these sitting in your shelf? I still don't understand, but somewhat I got to understand. The plan was, we would no longer exist by the time 1900 comes. That was the plan. So in the mid-1800s, they started trying to get these things. That's how long it took them. They weren't able to get them until these older guys died off in that other picture. These older guys died off. One of them, I don't know, how many of you ever heard of the great Mohawk poetess, Pauline Johnson? Anybody hear of her? A few of you have. That's her grandfather there. I think it's this one. Tim, is it? This one or this one? This guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the great poetess, one of our greatest wampum keepers, and the wampum keeper has to know the messages in here. It's not just a matter you're the storage shelter. You have to know, and you have to refresh your mind now and then. So that's why I don't mind doing this, what I'm doing, because I'm refreshing my mind today too. You know, that's what these are for. You're revisiting the message that's in there and the history and the teachings, if there's values or whatever it might be, prophecy. So he was one of the wampum keepers that had those 11 wampums, and when he passed, sad to tell you this, Pauline Johnson fans, her and her sister started floating out letters that they want to sell these, highest bid. And Pauline's letter actually says, I want to go on a speaking tour to promote my poetry. So I just give you that glimpse into that's the sad part of it. So some of these belts, they were floated out there when the chief died. They should have come back to our government. These records should have come back to our government. They didn't. So his daughter, Pauline and Evelyn Johnson, start figuring it's their family property. So that gives you a glimpse into that world back then. That's late 1800s, early 1900s. The thinking was changing about this. These are national property. But they were floating it around out to collectors. Of course, collectors were paying good money for things at a time when money was hard to come by. So that's the other side of that coin. That's what was happening. So anyways, we got them back. We got the belts back. The one that Pauline Johnson had, all of a sudden there's 2 figures missing off it. So there should be 5 figures on this other belt here. There's the bonus. The one at the bottom here, there should be 5 figures joined hands because it's our nations. Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga. Break that bond, even if the wind blew the tree over it, it wouldn't break their locked arms. That's how tight they're locked in unity, and they're sharing the same, I guess, marching orders, the same laws, the same values. So I just shared some of this with you because we don't keep this stuff hidden, huh? Like some of our own people were culprits in losing these. So that's what we know. But some of them were taken to the point of the gun. And there were older folks that were keeping them defenseless. So that's how we lost some of these belts. But in the last 35, 40 years I've been in council, we've gradually and steadily been tracking them down. And I hate to tell you this, and I don't want to offend nobody. The Vatican, he's holding on to some of these things. He's also holding on to some of our masks. He has ceremony masks of ours. And he has wampums. And when our repatriation committee, we've done some letter writing. We want an inventory to see what you have. Then we can evaluate if it's of cultural importance, ceremonial importance, and what we've done with them other collectors, because someone we got the artist, and that's the job I had. I went to the artist and I said, can you guys make something? We'll make a nice display for him to replace where he's got these bumps. So this is what we ended up doing, and it was against my better judgment, but I thought we'll give them something. They were holding on to stolen property. When they found out they were holding stolen property, the human thing to do would be to return it, say sorry. They didn't know it was stolen. They wanted something in exchange for their collection. So I got my uncle and I asked the fan out and went and asked the artist who used to make something. So we ended up making a really nice display of Indian art to give back to the collector. I evaluated that just from the artists that donated things. It was like $150,000 worth of goods we gave them for stolen goods back. Return my stolen goods. So there's a little bit of history here about this Wampum. We've been in a real battle, and we've been in a determined battle, a lot of determination, and we're still going. We also know that there's Wampums in France. We're waiting for them to evaluate whether they're going to come clean on it or not. But they have some Wampums as well. We're finding our Wampums in other areas of the world. So we have a team that works just returning or tracking down Wampums, masks, ceremonial items. So the Vatican responded back to that team and says, we're not under no repatriation laws. So we say, well, those things are sacred and culturally important, these things. There's a minute? 5 minutes? Oh, here we go. I shared a funny story with Courtney a while ago. I do a lot of public speaking for our people. There was an Indigenous Health conference in Toronto a few years back, and they invited me there to say a few nice words at the start and kick them off the 3-day Indigenous Health gathering. 2,500 delegates talking about Indigenous health. Oh, wow. You want me to speak? 5 minutes, that's all we want. Come and say a few nice words and send a blessing and do whatever you do and be on your way. Then the real meeting started. I said, okay, I'll be there. So the girl was coordinating over here. I said, hold up a sign over there. I didn't do that then, the girl did. She says, I'm going to give you I'll put a flag up under you got 2 minutes. So she put a paper up, 2 minutes. And that was big room full of important people deciding my health issues. So I work with Indigenous health day in and day out right this minute. I'm trained in that. A lot of people rely on me, probably more than our doctor on our territory. I'm in demand all the time, doctoring our people. And sometimes it's counsel, sometimes it's medicine or herbal thing, or ceremonial. So I'm in demand and I'm busy, and that's what I'm training. I have trainees that I'm training, traditional health strategy. So anyways, the girl holds up the sign. Next thing you know, it's 1 minute. And I looked over this side of the room after that. Kept breathing those on the way. I was on the roll, so I'm standing here like this. So the girl gets over here, and this time she had used a darker marker. That was a mean 1 minute sign. You could just tell that she made it really dark. She goes, 1 minute, 1 minute. So then I had to turn back over this end of the room. All total, I took 45 minutes. And I said, who enjoyed that talk? And I got a standing ovation. I don't think anybody who stood there to tell the Indigenous health from our perspective at the time, 5, 6 years ago. But I said, and I was telling Courtney that, I said, that's what we have to do to be heard. It shouldn't be like that. We should be mixed into the fray over their couple-day conference, at least, to make a decision about our health. So, anyways, we're going to take a break in a few minutes here. Is there any questions so far? I realize I give you a lot of history and understanding here, but I want you to understand that these wampums were given to us from the messenger of peace. So we're passionate about it, and it has important meaning to us. One in the back first.
You said that the wampum up there is the same size as the original? The one you have on your table there?
Yeah, this one, yeah.
So the original is lost?
No, we retrieved this one.
Oh,
We have this original. But this one here that I'm holding is a replica, but it's the exact size. Even the number of beads on here is the exact replica of the original. Another question?
Yeah, so you're referencing that as a replica, so there's no like protocols about replicas. Like, I've seen a lot of replicas. In our culture, in Haudenosaunee, we kind of like, I don't know, it's not like somebody, but it's kind of frowned on when we repeat things without being given permission. So is that just so you can continue, like the history of the Wampum is continued?
In our system, the ones who are responsible for these, you're also responsible to remind yourself and those around you what this is. So this is right in line with that. So
Those are necessary.
right. So you don't just, if you're a keeper, you don't just go put it away in the closet. Your responsibility is to share this knowledge, and so that the teachings are shared, and it's nicer to have a bigger group that hears these things together. I could just go sit in my workshop and say it to myself too. It's not quite as meaningful. But there's language and words and phrases and ideas, ideals and values and warnings too. They say that if we counsel that it's getting dark, if we meet all day debating things and the sun is going down, your level will start arguing this time. And this time it'll be like sparks flying in the room. Now think about that. After a long day, you don't want to get into something that's hard to taking a lot out of your thoughts, or you know, like it's combative sometimes issues. It's touchy issues. So where's that 1 minute sign? Yeah. Any other questions or anything? Any thoughts? It's just this one has got like a guide or a guardian that's called Hohahes. I don't know. That's the closest I can say in English. So it's a little bit different than that, but it has that. It's there to help me along, and it reminds me and it guides me and it guards me. So it's like having a reminder tied to your string. A string tied to your. You know how to say you want to remember something and you tie a string. It's similar to that too, but it's a guardian. So it's a little bit different. We have, after we have a little break there, I'll talk about this. We have different wampums that we use, and we use them different ways. I've only touched a couple here. Yeah. How long a break do you want to take?
It's like 10 minutes, but we're gonna do a quick round.
Okay, 5-10 minutes. Come from the other world. The messenger of peace brought it. But the first attempt to use this wampum came about as a man that had lost his family. His family died out on him, and he was depressed. And he began wandering around. He was trying to basically doing soul searching, you'd call it today. He was roaming the land, north, south, east, and west, trying to find something to reinvigorate, re-inspire him. And then he was like, I can't see straight because these tears, and tears won't stop. So then he started analyzing himself, reflecting on himself, how he's feeling. So then he says, when I lost the last relative of mine, my daughter, they were offering me words, but I just couldn't hear them because that death had stopped my hearing. But then he also noticed that he had a lump in his throat, and it was affecting the breathing. His breathing was half of what it should be. So that's what he done, is he started reflecting and saying, if someone else happens to be in this condition that I'm in, from grief, loss, and that mournful feeling is overwhelming. He says I should come up with a way to help them. So what he done is he went, and there's trees that we call them That's sumacs sumac trees and elderberry are pretty much the same family. They're hollow in the core, like it's real easy to hollow that out. So what he done is he come up with this idea to make a string with those hollowed out pieces of wood. He strung them up and he made a strand. I usually carry one, I didn't bring one this time, but when I have one to show you what they look like, it's pretty easy to knock clean the middle out of a sumac branch. So he cut a little piece and he hollowed that out and he strung it up and he ended up with a string, with a string like that. And he said, this is going to represent those tears. That's what it'll represent. So if I come across somebody and the tears are too much, then I'll use this strand and it'll be words to wipe the tears symbolically with a soft cloth that would feel good. That's what the first use of wampum was, wiping of the tears, clearing the conscience, clearing the senses, and restoring. Your battery is now running low. Where's it? I'm still good for a little while. Let it go, Chris. Yeah. So that's where wampum first came about. It was as a result of grieving, and he realized that without addressing this grief and the mournful feeling, that he couldn't really function. And in fact, he couldn't even hear people offering him good words. There was people offering him kind words and guidance and support and encouragement, but he just couldn't absorb it because the grief was too much. So he come up with using this strand. And so he made a strand for the tears, and he made a strand for the hearing and for the throat. And he just put him up on a stick and he was sitting next to his fire doing it. And that messenger of peace come up and listen and watch. And that's how that originated to us with using this wampum. They ended up inventing a system, that ceremony that we still use today. We just performed that ceremony last Friday, I think it was. About a week ago today, we had small condolence, we call it. Those strings, the messenger, he said that's going to be a continuing thing now when there's a death. We'll have a ceremony. And it's to clear the senses from the grief and to acknowledge the loss and the imbalance that has happened to you. So they will have ceremony for that. And that's been going on for thousands of years. We just performed it last Friday. The rule says 3 days after the burial. And that's what we follow. We followed that for thousands of years. I'm one of the carriers of those strings. Again, you carry the wampum, you have to know what that is. So that's my job amongst our people. Those strings passed down from my Uncle Barrie. He was discovered, come to my hand. And he was the same way as me. He has to keep reminding himself, and because you have to be ready to put that through. I have to be ready. I got a 3-day window to be ready to do that, and that message takes hours because we revisit when the messenger of peace comes to our people. So it was the messenger of peace that brought this wampum and the use of this. Hayawanta was the person's name who helped him. Hayawanta lost his daughters, and that's where it come about for us, the wiping of the tears and this ceremony of condoling and consoling and restoring. That's really what it is. So I think like that word I used earlier, Indian country, we're all in that search in varying ways. That restoring and reinvigorating and re-energizing, remembering, and also looking forward. We have to look forward with hope. That's what we need. So that's what the purpose of that is anyways, is to restore and we try to regain ourselves, refocus, reconnect. So that's where that started. The messenger overheard him doing the 3 words, they call it. So the eyes, the tears, and the hearing and the throat. And the messenger said there's going to be more to it than that. And he added on more. So that not your stomach and things like that, you're not comfortable in your seat if you're grieving and mourning. Even your seat's not comfortable. So there's more to it than that, but I just want to explain that. The messenger overheard Haudenosaunee knocking about greed, his own greed. And that's where that idea comes from, to have this ceremony. So there's actually 15 strands we have. We have 15 of these strands, and they have various burdens of grief, they call it. So, yeah, I'm a caretaker of that for the younger brother's side. The elder brothers also have 15 strands. So the elder brothers is on here. The three, the one in the center is the Onondaga, and on each end, Mohawk and Seneca, that's the elder brother. So this is the map of our people when the messenger of peace comes. So you have the Mohawk in the east, Oneida next to them, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca. So the two at the end, they also are known as our doorkeepers of our house, is symbolism that peace messenger gave. So the Mohawks were always in the east. So to the east, they guard the eastern door of our symbolic house. We call ourselves the Haudenosaunee. That came from that messenger because he symbolized our system as a house, Haudenosaunee. And you are Haudeno. Haudeno means the people. Haudenosaunee, you're the people of the house, the completed house. So in the sunrise is the Mohawks. They're guarding that eastern door of the house. If somebody comes, it goes through them. The Senecas are in the western door. And the path of peace is to be extended to all. That's why that white continues on. This belt doesn't just end. There's a white path there. That means to welcome others, be welcoming, and handle them procedurally. So this is the map of when the messenger comes. He unified our nations together in one house, one family. That's some of the things that's embedded in here that will operate as one family in one house. And the Onondaga in the center, and he stood, this messenger stood a symbolic tree in the center of the world. And the tree is a symbol of peace because it shelters everybody. So symbolically, everybody's sheltered under the branches of that tree. And they also use this as a record of one heart. So sometimes this belt is used, and we still do it this way. The belt goes this way sometimes. That shows that we should have one heartbeat together. And it's all symbolism, metaphors, whatever the proper term is. It means to strive for unanimous actions. That means we got to consider everybody. What you think and your words are important. However, it's your responsibility to think it over carefully. Choose your words, because your words can be good. Words can be bad, the outcome. So how we express ourselves, that's each individual responsibility. Find the best way to express what you want to say. So these are things that our traditional practices work. It's skills that we got to work at all the time. Communicating, even family, amongst one another in a family. So anyways, when the messenger come, it started out with consoling and grief. The use of that wampum. And Hiawatha actually was the one who discovered the shells that we used. The shells, the ducks moved out. They moved out of this little area of water at the edge of the lake, and it uncovered the shells. So Hiawatha went over and he said, these could be used to make these instead of that sumac branch. So that's how the shells become. We begin to use shells instead of the branch of the tree for the ease. So they put together that with the messenger of peace and Hiawatha and the women done a lot of the designing and the putting together. So that's a little bit about that origin of the wampum. The wampum come from the peace messenger and Hiawatha, and then they come up with these designs to mark this great event that happened. And about putting ourselves together. So there's other wampum here that I was going to show and explain. It's something we use too every year. Inviting. This is invitation. So we use this when we want to send a message to another village or another nation. And the runner is bundled with words. And he runs and he takes this invitation. and it has a message in it. So nowadays it's like your phone, right? You're sending your messages to one another and things like that. This was the old way. They send the runner the messages, and he repeats that message, and there's notches in the stick, and it tells what the date and the meaning of the gathering. So there's notch, however many notches, they know how to read these things. I know some of it, but we do use this stuff in the fall time. Every fall we use this. The runners go out with their sticks, bring us together to hear our prophecy message and our teachings of good and bad. We do that at the end of summer every year. We travel to our different Haudenosaunee territories. I'm one of the speakers that are trained. There are 4 of us. Usually every generation there's 2 to 4. I'm one of the 4 right now. And I'm training another right now. I'm actually training 2 just to be saved. So that's been our traditional process. The message in some of these wampum take 9, 10 hours. So that's why I say I'm going to train. I might even take more than 2. It's in my hands for the rest of my days. I got to train somebody to take my place, if possible. It's not an easy task because the world we live in is changing. So that's the challenge I have. Is I got to really watch somebody that might be able to carry on and remember things and keep things in order, including themselves. That's the challenge we all have, I guess. But so there's some of the wampums here, and the wampums were used to record the message of peace coming, and the values in there. Our laws were very simple. To me, the laws was about being procedural and being respectful, having a good mind, and strive for peace and unity, and to think of unborn generations. And some say 7. If you look 7 generations ahead, some have said that. And some of the others say it's ongoing generations, coming faces. But I hear all that in the language. Check out all of the boxes. All of the above. What it means is to don't just think of what's going to be good for us today, but think of the continuing generations. Is it going to benefit them? Our government right now at home is wrestling with that right now, even with the solar. We're finding out that that lithium and that they don't really have a safe process to deal with the disposal once those lifespan run out and things. Everything that's happening in these battery storage facilities and things coming around our territory. So, again, back to the laws here. We're supposed to think generations ahead. Are we going to leave a mess? It might look good today, but what about our great-great-great-grandchildren? We're going to leave them a mess? So that's some of the things in this wampum, is to think further than today and think of unborn generations and think of continuing generations for their health and happiness. We can barely think of tomorrow. We're too busy, huh? Everybody. That's what's kind of happening sometime. To give it its due consideration is what basically the reminder is wampum. Anyways, I got some pictures here. This belt here is the last belt that ever crossed hands between my government and my nation and the Canadians. This here was presented after the War of 1812 finally ended. It was actually 1814, I believe. I gotta look at my panel here. I gotta do this right, because Tim's sitting over here. 1815, the Colonel William Claus was a representative of the government. I don't know if you've ever been taught this, but the Indigenous allies that the British Crown Canada had saved this country's butt. Not only just once, but in particular when the Americans were going to overrun and take over Canada. They had the means and the determination to. It was our ancestors stopped that. In my village, we have a cannon right in the center of our territory. If you ever get up my way, there's a BMO in the center of the village, right opposite corner of that, there's a cannon sitting there. That's the spoils of war of turning the Americans back. We captured them, sent them back, and we kept that cannon. So that cannon sitting in our village there is the spoils of it. Turn Americans back. And now think about it. We really have no issue with the Americans. We actually have treaties of peace with them. Why did we do that? It was out of our obligation. Right here. Again, the Wampum record. Our ancestors pledged mutual aid to the British and their descendants, the average Canadians. So this is what saved, this here thing here saved this country. The alliance. This is known as the covenant, the silver covenant of chain of freedom, the silver covenant chain of friendship. Again, we have these originals. This is a record. We agreed to have peace and friendship and mutual aid. So the Hohahes on one side, the indigenous people, and the non-indigenous Canadians and Americans. Americans agreed to this too. Our people found the balance of the two after fighting. But they didn't want to see us fighting. Our people know how to fight. That's what's bad about our people. We are people of peace. But if we gotta fight, look out. Anything goes. And that's why we're feared and respected. But that's not our laws to be like that. So I don't think we're a far step from that if things push comes to pull. Especially my village and my people, we've had enough. And I make sure Ottawa knows that. As somebody in the role I have, I don't want to see that. And I don't even want to see the threat of it. Because that's a match you don't want to light. That fire. You think about this generation of our people, we were living through so many things, and we're living with the outcome of assimilation and the abuse suffered in the residential school, and it affected every one of our homes in some ways. So there's like an anger and a fire bubbling in us, and you don't want to light that match, because I don't know how to put that fire out, and I don't know if I want to. I'm going to join it, because I feel that way too. The average Canadian is so ignorant about it. They get this perception we're a bunch of freeloaders that do no good. And meanwhile, we save this darn country's butt. So, after that war ended, our two Wampum do, right? I'm the caretaker of this original. And it's so old and decrepit. And I'm like, I wish this was respected. It's old. We just had a renewal ceremony in 2013. It was a 400th year anniversary with the Dutch. To have peace and friendship and abide by mutual respect and mutual aid. And never to interfere with one another's ways. That's what that's about. That's the ship and the canoe going down the river of life together. Indigenous ship and the canoe of the non-natives. To last as long as the grass grows, rivers flow, as long as the sun is in motion. That's some of the words embedded in this. And that we'd be bound by this chain of friendship. So if one is in trouble or has troublesome issues, they can shake that chain. The other side will come and address it at the highest level of respect. That's what the words of that treaty is. Those are the two main treaties we have within Haudenosaunee. The treaty, the two Wampum, and the covenant chain. But there was a follow-up. They made an extradition agreement. So we also have an add-on. So if anybody commits murder, rape, or theft, we turn the jurisdiction to punish over to the crown. But it's with conditions. They can't kill nobody. And they also have to jointly investigate and prove, later prove to our government. They can't just go grab somebody and say, this guy here done this. They've got to lay the proof out, investigate, prove it's justified. That's the only laws Canada has over us. That's why we're fighting with them all the time. We haven't agreed to nothing else. They're just forcing jurisdictional things. Constant fight. So, anyways, this was the last belt that changed hands when the War of 1812 ended. the powers that be realized we've got to do something for our indigenous partners because we sustained a lot of loss again. And we sacrificed again. So first let me tell you this. They took some of our money, our national treasury, Six Nations. Sir Isaac Brock was the hero. Let's put a monument up. Six Nations funds were used for that. How many of you have seen that at Niagara Falls? Take a look next time you're in Niagara-on-the-Lake. Especially if you're coming across from the United States into Canada. The tallest thing you'll see when you come across that bridge is that statue of Isaac Brock. We paid for that. And my uncles, they heard stories from my grandfather. They says he was dead within the first minute of battle, shot from behind. They think his own troops killed him. That's our warriors that were there with him. So, anyways, I'm just saying, talking about that lighting that match in me, you know, we got that flame in me too. This was not right. So you got a big monument for Isaac Brock, the war hero of 1812. What about us? So what about us? They turned around. The powers that be thought we better acknowledge that. So they sent Sir William Claus, called Colonel William Claus in 1815. And he wrote his wampum and delivered it to our people. I took after his wampum too. And it was a pledge to never disturb our peace in our function. And they also reaffirmed our existing treaties and responsibilities, peace and friendship, the covenant, and they would never interfere with us being who we are. So that was the pledge wampum, we call it. So this is the word to use when we presented this to our government. This bill, which I now hand to you, I ask in compliance with your customs to be sent by you with these of my words in his behalf, that means the king, to all the nations in friendship with your great father, the King of England. I recommend to the whole of you a steady adherence to your ancient customs and manners, which cannot fail to make you respected by all the nations surrounding you. So this is the last wampum belt that changed hands from the crown to our nations and our allies. So this wasn't just for the Six Nations or the Haudenosaunee, it was for all of them. It was issued to all the nations in friendship. That's because we had a network of allies. And that's what saved this country. This country would be, you'd have another star on the flag there maybe by now. That's what they were after. I think they still have that in mind, to be honest with you. I don't know if we're going to be there to defend this country this time. I don't know if we have that in us. We've been mistreated, abused, disrespected in every corner. So, as somebody that sits in the government and I have to deal with their government, Canada, Ontario, that's my thoughts about it. They're going to have to prove they're worthy of it somehow. That's my thoughts. So, anyways, this belt was the last one that was exchanged, and we don't really know the exact meaning or the symbols of it. It's just that he presented it, but it gives you the picture of a crooked two roads, if you look at it. So our two-road path down the river of life went a little crooked. Right? That's the way I interpret it. It makes sense to me. We stayed true, though. I just wish we had one straight line, huh? We stayed true. We adhered to that pledge. So, this one here is pretty important. And it's something that we've used. The messenger of peace brought this concept, as he said that you're fighting over land rights, basically survival. So then there's territorial fighting going on in between groups of hunters and people wandering. There's the creator of all has made this land, and all living things he placed here to benefit humans. It's equally for everyone. There's nobody claimed that. And that's what this belt shows. It's that the land and all that it holds. So that's Turtle Island and all that she holds right there. All living things. There's a greater power that places things for benefit, creation. And it's meant for everybody equally, so nobody owns the dish. become known as one dish, struck sign. Struck us that. The Mohawks in Haudenosaunee started saying one spoon. I don't know if that was a misunderstanding or not, but they said, what the fuck? That don't fuck. It's a spoon. So I don't know. All I know is that it's one dish. And in the middle, the symbol that the messenger of peace used was a cooked beaver tail. So for about half of my life, I was like, a cooked beaver tail, yikes. Until I tasted it. I actually had a soup made from beaver tail, and it was pretty good. My tail was cooked with that corn soup. And I disguised the flavor a little, but I liked that. I ate cooked beaver tail soup. Do you have some of that, Tim? Did you ever eat that? No? Anybody ever eat cooked beaver tail? No? Look at this, I'm standing alone here. You're just gonna have to take my word on it, huh?
I eat beaver tails that are made with donuts.
Yeah, that's different, that one. I don't count at the fair. So this belt here is the one dish. And like I say, sometimes you'll see in English, they'll say the dish with one spoon. So when the messenger of peace comes, and that's what he got all the nations to pledge, that they would look at it as sharing from one dish, that we all have equal rights. But he added on there, we have equal responsibilities too. So we have to adhere to laws of nature, basically. So you don't take more than you need, and you think of others, not just other humans, but animals. Animals also got to feed from that same dish. So that's the laws that, when they say natural laws, common sense, basically. You don't take more than you need, and you don't deplete everything. So at a young age, myself, I was trained that without really realizing it, but even berry picking. Like my mother would take us out like that, and we hit a really good patch, and it was like, all right, we're going to get all our berries right here. But no, we just pick some here and we move on, look for another patch and leave. So we always have to leave some because there's others. That's the concept of this one dish thinking. So the messenger of peace presented that, and our ancestors accepted that. And he says, I got everywhere where you see good smoke rising, they all adhere to this. So that means there's going to be peace if all adhere to this. See, nobody owns it. Nobody owns the dish. That we have responsibilities to the content, so it's there for the next ones. I wish the world would accept that law. That's law, huh? That's supreme law. So that's the law we're still obligated to. Hohahes, Indian country. And we have our struggles. Where I'm from, we're getting wealth. Our business people are seeing wealth in this last probably 50 years, 40 years maybe. And it's been good and bad. Business people are employing people locally, good paying jobs. But on the other hand, they're destroying our forests, which we fought to defend for 200, 300 years. So some of them, our business guys, are clear cutting our own forests, our own people. And in our territory, it's visible from space, that green space. So we've got to do some work when I get home. Now, I hope more than just me think about that. We've got to preserve the green spaces we have. That's what I'm saying. And that's part of this law here. So this other belt here I brought, and it was on that picture too. We have the original of this too. This belt here served two purposes. One purpose was to remind the British that we're a separate nation. So the British started wanting to employ indigenous people in their government. And that's what happened. They employed one of our guys, and our ancestors sent this belt and says, this is you, this is us. You are not us, we're not you. But you have some of our people employed in they're under your law. We're not. So basically, this was a reaffirmation of that new role and that covenant, that we're two separate peoples, but we're bound by concepts and principles, right? These three ideas. These three laws One is to have always peaceful relation, and also nurture friendship, and also mutual respect and trust. We're supposed to always be working at it. That's the principles of that. So when we made this year was sent to the British government to remind them we're a separate people from you, but we're bound to you by these principles and laws we've agreed to since you arrived here. Now, this same bell, similar, was used to make peace with the Anishinaabe in the Haudenosaunee. So it recognized one another's nationhood and your territorial rights and the laws and traditions you have. So Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee, they agreed to respect one another's existence. And the thing that changed in between is that we'll have peace, friendship, and mutual aid. So we pledge to help one another when we need help. So that's what this one here is. We have this original too. That's an old agreement. We had our moments amongst our nations, moments of peace and moments of fighting. But we managed to make peace and overcome diplomatically. So that's what these are, like diplomatic records of things. So it is, well, I took a little selection of these to go through. These are actual pictures when we retrieved some of our wampum. This was unbundling them. It was emotional for me because I was like, well, I wonder how long they were wrapped and put in that guy's closet. I see them when they were in the guy's closet. So unbundling, unwrapping these and looking at them. Do you see that one I just now showed you? There it is right there. That's the original. Right there. And there's the original, the other one here, this covenant. Two real wampum there. And these other ones are associated with the law, the great law of peace. The messenger used a lot of symbols. I mentioned that tree a while ago with the branches and everything. It's symbolic that this symbolic tree, the branches shelter the whole earth, all four corners. So there's 4 white roots going one in each direction. All peoples can follow those roots and have shelter and welcome them to protect under that peace, the tree of peace. At the top is an eagle, and the eagle was assigned by the Creator to be a guardian and to be on lookout and to let us know if something is coming, trouble. So what he does is he spread this white mat, and he says, you should be on comfortable seats when you're deciding things. That's what the law is. So he's used that white wampum to symbolize comfortable seats for them to sit on. It's like a white mat. And the white, that means pureness. Have pureness in your thoughts. So no malicious thoughts, envy or nothing like that. So pureness of thought when you consider things. Now think about some of this stuff, you know, when you leave here. That's applicable today. You function different when you have clear thought, clear mind. But if you had a day, really tough day, and then at the end of that, you try to figure something out, tough, not so easy. So this is what the message of that is, to try to keep things clean around your fire. Keep it clean around your fire. It's simple. Keep it clean and have that clear thought and focus and patience. And your goal is peace. Your goal is health and wellness for a continuing generation. That's just a close-up of some of the wampum. You see how old some of these look now? Some of these look pretty old. This one here, that's what a lot of them are like that we got back. And there's a real, the elders have pretty well gone on who sat in council when we got these back, our elder chiefs, and they were in a real quandary, I would say, as to whether to repair these and fix them up nice or leave them how they are. because it's showing the age. So because they didn't come to one about it, they couldn't decide one way, one mind to do less repairs. Some wanted to repair them, and some said leave them on the yard. So because there wasn't one mind come to repair them, they just left them on the yard. So most of these belts are still in this state, so they're a little bit fragile handling them. I get nervous because some of those some of those beads are just barely hanging on. So if they come off, now and again, one or two come off, we just put them back in there. That's the thing that's interesting. They'll usually stick back in like between the rows. So they're sinew like this, or leather. Sometimes it's plant material, sometimes it's leather, sometimes it's sinew off an animal. The threading that we use. So those beads will usually just stick back in there and snap back in till the next time. So we keep them, we keep an eye on that when we get them out. We get them out annually, these belts. Maybe not all of them, but we're getting them out again this summer in our territory. June 30th, we're going to get the belts out and recite the messages of that. This year we're only going to do it in the languages though. So I'm studying right now this week. Because what we were doing is talking the language for maybe 20 minutes, 15. Then you get a little break to collect your thoughts. Somebody interpret well, and you get in there 15, 20 minutes at that. This year we're going to just do it all language. This year is the 100-year anniversary from the government, Canadian government coming in and reading this thing, order dissolving us. So this is a 100-year anniversary since they've done that, and we're still here. That's why we're going to do it in our language. We're still here, we still know these things. Mind you, our people are trying to reconnect. We acknowledge that. So we got to figure something out for that. So the ones who can understand so good, maybe we're going to have a display of artwork to go along with the speaking or something. We're in meetings right now. I just finished. We meet every month. The committee a month. And most of the ones on the committee are fluent. So we're trying to put our minds to the ones that aren't fluent as well. So that's behind the work scenes going on, taking place in our spare time. Is there any questions anybody have or any thoughts? There's the original Cayuga Wampum, European first arrival in our land. That's the condition it's in. This one here. So that was 1613 that was made. And it was the Dutch, by the way. And it's funny, I don't think it really mattered in my life who was here first or nothing, but it matters in some corners of the world who was here first. So in the Haudenosaunee tradition, the French were here first. And I don't know if it was Champlain, that's who I think it was. And it was a violent encounter. First time our ancestors seen guns, shot some of our people, took some of our people away. And now this is an oral tradition story that I heard. So at Champlain discovery, he realized there's some people living here in this new world. Killed some, showed them the power of the gun, and took some and left. Go back to show the king, hey, I found new land and here's some people to prove it. That was our ancestors. Took them along as a showpiece. When they come back, our ancestors were waiting for them this time. They had a little different welcoming in mind for them. Let's just say that. So our encounter with the French wasn't pleasant. That's off and on. We made peace though. There's peace made too, but then it would get broke again. Same thing with our indigenous nations. And it's usually the French and English get us fighting each other. When the Dutch settled, they were like, oh, that's what that was about. But it has caused some fractured relations to this day. For us, we got to make peace and say this here is what was done, and we got to move forward together. Because humans are on a race for survival right now. The climate and everything that's happening. And it's prophesizing these Wampum. How's that? That there's changes coming. And we have to know how to survive, what are we going to do to survive, and what makes us strong is part of the survival. So having a lot of wealth and acquiring a lot of things is not makes you strong, not to the powers that matter. So that's some of the things in Wampum. That's some of the laws and the teachings and the warnings, prophecies. Well, anyways, so the French were here, but we never actually made a lasting relationship with them. It was unpleasant. So then the Dutch came, maybe less than 50 years later, the Dutch arrived. So the Dutch we ended up making peace with them and friendship. And we acknowledge one another's differences and that you have a right to be different. So that's the substance of it, is that you have your ways, we have our ways of being. And you can continue on, and if you stay in your ship, go down a symbolic river of life, and we'll stay in our canoe. And we'll never cross paths or interfere with each other, but we'll be guided by these principles between the ship and the canoe. So honoring peace, fostering friendship, and also promoting mutual respect for our continuing generation. So we teach our children to respect, and also that we're tied together with this chain of friendship. So yeah, that's what the original looks like right there. I don't like handling it. It's pretty fragile, but I have to handle it. And that's the original there, this one. How we doing, Barrie? Yeah, and now is this a really serious 3 minutes? A lot of these belts, they use symbols, these diamonds and that represent, sometimes it represents nations, sometimes it represents villages, sometimes it represents other clans and so on. So you'll see the diamond sometime, and then this path is always a part of that. It seems like they always have this path. And that's always taking us back to that messenger of peace that comes to the world. That's what that path is there's a path to follow for peace, for all people. So when you see that, I mean, a lot of these belts have this, and you notice this four right here, the center, the path. So it's a constant reminder when you see these belts, it's a constant reminder that there is a path. Your terms of reference, that should be the terms of reference. Especially places that operate to serve as our people. The term of reference should be a path of peace. And how do you define that? Maybe we got to define it together sometime. Because sometimes we're working in somebody else's policies that aren't really fostering peace. That's my experience. Not to criticize nothing or nobody. Food for thought. I don't want to see us having a revolution when I leave. But I'll be in the front row with you. No, we're kidding. That's what I tell the federal government. I've represented our people right across the table with the feds more than a few times. Hunting and fishing and our treaty rights and so on, and talks with the land and stuff. And I don't pull no punches. I say, you're dealing with a different generation, and you've created a dangerous generation. Because our youth and that really don't give a damn anymore what you think. They're not trying to try to appease you with peace. This thing here, you've broken these. So you got to put something on the table meaningful, and a meaningful act. So I'm kind of glad though, like this stuff with the residents of schools and things, ecology and things, and they're trying to give some effort of reconciliation. And I don't think, like I tell the friends, I don't think you have the ability to define that and approve. You'll feel miserably, sit in the back row, and we'll figure it out together.
I work within my own indigenous culture as well as a knowledge keeper, but I'm impressed and I am, because you have your wampum belts and even though those are delicate and people have made the decision, there's so many other nations that need to take that same attitude about educating and forming. We can't always turn around and say the center of population are ignorant or they're racist, but we haven't made the effort to educate and inform. And my nation talks about using the sand scroll teachings. They're so sacred. They're so sacred, some people can't even look at them. And that just saddens me because, I just like the replicas of the wampum duck because it just shows that you are dedicated to the continuation of your knowledge and your wisdom and your nation. That story is going to continue on no matter what.
Thank you for that. I'm glad to hear that myself, because we all are a work in progress. That's the bottom line. And I've had elders who were very stubborn, and I was kind of scared, kind of scared to ask some things. And I realized as I got older, it was from their life experience mostly. They went through some things you and I may not have. So you got to kind of have that kindness in your heart about it, and that kind of gives you a perspective of why people are the way they are. So we're kind of living in an age where that's kind of becoming more plain to us, whereas in our parents and grandparents may not have been so plain. But that's what I see. That's what I say, we're working. It's like artwork. When you're doing artwork, you might have the vision of what it's going to be, but somebody watching might have to wait till it unfolds. Huh? And then once it kind of progresses, and then you start seeing the picture unfolding, or whatever it might be. So that's the way I view a journey that I've been on, and I know a lot of people. I've been to a lot of places, a lot of different indigenous nations, especially. I've represented our people internationally too. I've crossed paths with a lot of people, and there's a lot of good people out there, and a lot of people that are aware about our plight, I guess you would say. And I say, have patience, as we're a work in progress. And now and again, we go 3 steps this way and a couple back, and maybe a couple extra back too. But we keep on keeping on, and that's what keeps us strong. You got to find that in here, push, and keep on keeping on when things get tough. But sometimes it's a good thing too when things get tough, because it makes you use this. So it seems like to me, my journey, been in so many circles of things. I've worked with lawyers and things, and no one solves over here. Sometimes it's a different perspective too, right? Sometimes that different perspective is needed. And same thing with lawyers, sometimes they need a different perspective to really achieve something. So that's why I say we're a work in progress, we're learning as we're going along. So, any other questions, or am I cut loose and go and battle my 4-hour ride home? I'm going to find an old Hohahes trail.
Don't post it on Facebook.
There's probably a nice direct route to Hohahes here to the other lake. Any other questions or comments? Anybody want to share anything? Was that plain enough?
I was just curious, was there a designated person that would be in charge of kind of making the actual belts, like within the community, or would it just kind of depend on?
No, not necessarily just that designated person. It kind of it varied. I do know that they would get the women to put them together. Probably practical reasons. You probably do a lot neater lines and everything than men. But I think it was an example of men and women working together too. So the leaders may be across the table speaking on behalf of our people, carrying those words of our families. But then when we go to mark something and report it, it's put together with the effort of the females, the women, so that both taxes are added into something. So it's kind of a lesson to be learned even about this. It wasn't really just a designated person who would put this together. In the beginning, the peacemaker, he took that idea, come up with it, and he ran with it. He engaged the women too. When the U.S., I don't think I put that belt on here. How many of you have been to Buffalo Airport? Anybody? Buffalo Niagara Airport? Did you happen to notice something like this on the floor or no? Anybody? I knew it. You just had in mind to fly away. Next time you're at Buffalo Niagara Airport, take a look down on the floor. We have this same agreement with the United States, the Haudenosaunee. There are 13 of these figures. They're all joined like that, sort of like that one that I have up here. It looks on the floor of the Buffalo Niagara Airport. It's just like this. And there's a house, a symbolic house in the center. They've got it going through their airport. That's the first treaty Americans made with indigenous nations. And we acknowledge them as a right to be a nation, and they reaffirm we're a nation. And we're bound by these principles of peace and friendship and mutual respect. So that wampum belt is all going through the floor in the airport. It's an actual wampum belt, and we have the original. I think it's about 10 feet long. You ever see it, Tim? Very long belt. It takes about 5 of our leaders to hold it. So those of you who walk through Buffalo Airport, you missed a great big wampum belt on the floor. It's not the actual beads. It's just I think it's actually silver, the color that they use, but it's right in the floor. That belt there. That's our treaty there. They call it the Washington Covenant in English. We call it one of the gun. That's interestingly. He destroyed our villages. So the agreement of peace with the one who destroyed our villages. That's what I mean. It's a work in progress if you think about it. Even history. This guy sent in troops to destroy our people. He couldn't pull it off. So we made peace and friendship after. To respect one another. So, anyways, I think that's something we need to bring back to the forefront again in the world, even amongst our own peoples, that kind of thinking. That we strive for peace and friendship and mutual aid and mutual respect. That would take us a long way. On that note, I'm getting hungry for it. I was at Obama, he dropped the mic. I dropped the mic at the start of my talk.
Is he gonna come back again?
No time. I'm running out.
But we need to know more now.
Okay, the thing that Courtney didn't tell you, you all have to fill out a test and a reflection before you're allowed to leave.
I listened really well, so I'm good.
An amazing teacher.
Yeah, back down in Niagara Falls, and one east wing of that cemeteries, there's a big maple tree, and it's a little fence around. When you go in that area, the trees blow like crazy in there. Is that due to our spirits?
Okay, are you ready for this? Now he's going to provoke a story. Our people, mind you, we've had shared history, the nations, and that's what I think we have to realize and keep that in mind. Our ancestors roamed this land, this area. We shared the area. Niagara was shared by many nations, but what I'll tell you is a little bit of history I know takes us back to the time of the dinosaurs and serpents. So there was, in the beginning of time, a creator was getting ready to make humans to live here. This is part of our tradition. So he roamed back over and he looked if there's something out of place or something that could harm humans. Well, those humans, his brother, he had an evil brother who was making things to destroy life. So he made these dinosaurs and serpents to just feed off of other life that the creator made. So the creator locked them all down underground in a cave, and he made the thunderers, the grandfathers, to watch it. And he gave them power to shoot them. So they shoot like a lightning shot. It's like a gun going on. And that's where they fought one of the serpents in Niagara Falls. We named that area Nyangala. It's my language. And it's because when the thunderers fought that serpent, they kept burrowing, and the lightning was hitting and exploding the rocks, and that thing kept burrowing. And it ended up looking like it made a neck in there. It looked like a neck, like the head was a leg, and then the neck went that way. So that's why they named it Onagara. That's what I know from traditional stories. So they didn't know that serpent just died or just went underwater there. So there's a leader of those thunderers. His name was Eagle. And he says, I'm going to stay here at these falls we've created. And I'm going to make my home under there. And just in case the serpent comes back. So why I'm sharing you this little bit of a story, that spirit is believed to be the power or energy around Niagara Falls. It's the combination of that thunder, the grandfather, and the serpent. So they say the traditional story that we know is that the thunderers took care of the last serpent that showed itself in that area. And they don't know if it died though. Some say it's caught in that whirlpool and it might emerge someday. That's why the thunder stayed there. That's a traditional story for you. I don't know if you've ever heard that. Anybody ever heard something like that? Okay, that'd be on your quiz for you. I think that's the spirit power of the thunders and their powers is kind of like electricity, right? And also that being. And serpents and dinosaurs had their own spirit powers. And in the language we say Wampum. They had Wampum power, right? So that means that they were kind of unbridled power. And they could do things, spiritual things. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm not surprised there's spirit power around there. I had another incident around there that I'm not going to share today. I had a spirit touch me when I was around there, and I got marked from it. And that's what I believe it was. I was thinking a little too much about that history, maybe. The thing just wanted to show me that it was there. So it was just like somebody touched me. And I had marks on my arm. And it was just me and my wife walking a path. There's a spirit power there, I know for sure. I interacted with me when I was there.
It's like the common devil's elbow. Okay, the Americans pushed the natives over with the carriages, the horses, everything down that hill. And that's the area. They got steps going down.
Yeah. I know where you're talking about, yeah. We got a lot of history in that area. What about Ontario? Do you know the meaning of that? No. You know that we named that too? So we used to call it Onadario. That's the original name we had for Ontario. And what it means is the lakes and nice lakes. So that's our name. That's where the name for Ontario comes from. That's my language. They couldn't quite say Onagara. And Niagara. It's all kind of hollow now, don't it? So Onagara, Onadario, and Granada. That's also our language. Canada. Granada. Village. That's what it means. So Toronto is also our language. Toronto. What I know from our elders about that Toronto was always sort of how it is today. It's sort of known as a trading center. Our ancestors that was a rendezvous place for nations west, north, south, and east come together, and they would trade. You know, I don't know if you know that. I doubt you do because they hide our history. But our ancestors, we had guns and gunpowder and metal way inland before the explorers even come in there. So when they start penetrating deeper inland in North America, they're like, they have guns already in that village. 4 days travel and there were guns. So our people had trade networks and methods of getting things from the coast to the inland to the other coast. And Toronto, that was a place where we used to meet. It was a trading place and we would interact with other nations, and that was a place in Wall Street, Bay Street, I guess. But that was an indigenous trading post that would come together and exchange. Even partnerships were formed. Meet your future husband there or your future wife. So, but Toronto, Now, this is a traditional story that I heard from one of the older chiefs I sat with, and he said that they used to, I said, why is it called that? Galonda is a loud, like a trumpet, you know? Galonda, that's what I recognize. So he says that there was a huge, back, Chicaunduanes, that's what they say in the language. I mean, trees were big one time ago. You see little traces of it here and there, you know? He says a big tree went down, and so they cleaned it up, and they made it so the canoes could lash off when they come together there. And so the big rock that was in the water, that's where the canoes would come in for trading. Galon, that means the log that's in the water. So that's what I know about how Toronto got its name. Now there again, we're saying Toronto, look at how hollow that sounds, you know. Galon is what the old traditional name was for that. So nobody, again, we all agreed that we share that area, and nobody owns it. That's that, I tag in with it. So this wasn't only just amongst the Haudenosaunee, it was amongst the other indigenous nations, and also amongst the British, and amongst the British know this, and they use this as a symbol of our hunting. So we preserve the right to hunt and fish right across the land, because that's the concept of the dish. So the dish with one spoon or one dish, it's not really just exclusive to one nation or people. So, anyway, I'll be here till dark, I gotta run. Before my belly starts telling me to get out of here.
One